So we wanted to talk about entitlement,
Oh,
general sense of entitlement, because it's getting on both of our nerves. You had some examples. I had some examples. I really loved your examples. Please.
I really loved your example because your situation puts you in a prickly situation. Speak to it.
Okay. Please understand who these people that I'm talking about do not matter. The
Right,
idea is what matters. Okay.
right.
So I know a person who has worked at a place for a while and they wanted to get a promotion. A new guy can't comes in and also has done a very, very good job and wanted to get that same promotion. The new guy is a white guy. I believe he's also LGBTQ.
Okay.
And the other person is a Black woman. The Black woman seemed to believe that she was entitled to this job because she had been there longer, even though the other person was better at the job and learned the job faster. And when put to the test of their technical skills, one person did extremely well,
Okay.
outperformed the test, and another person kind of failed it. And so that's what it came down to. And the other person was very, very upset about it. They believed that the test didn't apply to them or didn't apply to the role.
But it
And
did
but it did.
because you saw the test because you wrote it.
Yeah, I wrote the test. And so the idea that like this person was just supposed to get this job didn't really that was interesting to me.
Okay.
But when objectively put out there to determine whether or not they had the skills, it turned out this other person, had the skills. It doesn't mean this person won't be qualified for such a role later on. I'm always happy to help. But the attitude, the sense of entitlement was interesting to me.
And what did you feel the entitlement was based on? Being a woman, being a Black person, or a combination of both?
A combination, and also having been there the longest.
Seniority.
Yeah,
Okay.
a bit of seniority, and I think they thought I was going to help them out.
Hmm.
But that's just speculation.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, what do you have to say? I know certain things you can't talk about with your examples, but what can you share?
So I can share the sense of entitlement story based on a conversation I had with students because I am currently teaching in a public school, a science class in a high school. And one of the things I discussed in class are current events. One of those current events was the firing of an NYU science professor because a minority group of students did poorly on the first test and felt that the course should have been watered down, complained to the school, not realizing it would result in the professor's firing, which it did. So I brought that up to my students to see what their thoughts were. And interestingly enough, the majority of the students in my class thought the students were wrong and thought it was out of pocket for them to question someone who was so seasoned. So I say to them, but yet some of you have done this. Some of you have gone home, complained to your parents, and they've emailed the school about me, about other teachers. You've done this. See how easy it is to judge other people when the shoe's on the other foot? So you saw how immature and how entitled it was for those students to do that. Because basically, their parents at NYU, it appears based on the information the students and I discussed, was that by sheer default of the tuition being paid to the college, their kids should be passing those classes. Now, if that's not a sense of entitlement on cocaine, I don't know what is, but it speaks to the shift in the parents' mentality in parenting, which has now raised a society of kids who think everybody gets a trophy and that everybody should just graduate medical school because you feel like going. And now you have kids not being diligent, not doing the work, and then the entitlement is bleeding into everyday life. So teachers, we get maybe 30 minutes for lunch. And now you have kids coming to your classroom during your 30 minutes of lunch because the library is not open for them to sit in, or they're not allowed to leave the campus so they can't go outside, or they don't have any friends so they don't want to sit alone in the cafeteria. And now the very 30 minutes you get to yourself, you're now sharing with kids who think, oh, your classroom's open, and of course you want to spend it with me. So what are you going to do? Be that jerk of a teacher who throws the kid out of a classroom? You're going to suck it up. So most of the time I suck it up. And if I can, I try to leave the campus just so I can get that time to myself. But this is what's happening, is that we're breeding people who think they deserve things surely for existing.
Indeed. That
And
is
not
very
to say,
interesting.
right? And there's not to say that people shouldn't be trained. And there's a way to move people up the ladder. And I don't think we are being diligent enough about understanding that people need to be taught things. All of us were taught to hold the spoon once. People need to learn how to use computers, how to use different languages, different programs. People need to be taught it. Everybody assumes everybody's learning it off Google, but that is just not the case. You can't learn everything that way. And people learn in different ways. Some are auditory, some are visual, some are interactive. You can't just throw everybody on Google. That's like throwing everybody on a standardized test and going, everyone who doesn't do well is an idiot. That's not fair, and it's short-sighted. But the sense of entitlement is bleeding into everyday life, which is making people suck as a whole, which is forcing people into their corners and making them retreat from engaging with anybody at all. That's why everybody's getting fatter and the TVs are getting bigger, but our brains are getting smaller.
Hmm.
On this episode of Raw Food.